Today I'm going to replace the starter motor on my Suzuki Quad Runner with a cheap Chinese one. I bought a new starter motor, just a Chinese one, on Amazon. That's the new one. This is an old one that had lots of problems, but that's the original Suzuki one. Mitsubishi brand on there. One of the first things you notice is the new one is a smaller diameter, the body of it. The shape of the end panel, that curve to the left hand side, is similar to the original. The lengths of things seem like, certainly the bolt spacings and the lengths all appear to be correct. The position of the terminal seems correct. So I think that's going to fit. It's just going to be a question of being a smaller diameter. It probably doesn't have the same torque as the original. It certainly looks smaller when it arrived in the post from memory, and when I came out and did a side-by-side comparison, yes, it is smaller. Now, this is a spare. The one that's on the bike at the moment got oil in through the pinion gear here, in and filled full of oil, and I think spread a whole lot of oil around the top of the motor, and the oil got into the brushes and it eventually stopped. I pulled parts out of this one and got it going again. I didn't change oil seals and things. So the one that's on the bike works, but was only going to work for temporarily and probably fill full of oil and spread oil again over the top of the motor. So I bought this one on Amazon in Australia, $65 delivered. Look, it looks a little bit cheap and nasty. We'll see. I'm not going to pull it apart and look at the internals. I'm just going to fit it up, see whether it works. That's the end of the starter motor there, sitting in the valley between the cylinder head and where the crankcase rises up, and the transmission's really to the rear there. The centrifugal clutch is here and the conventional clutch is there. Starter motor's held in by 2 bolts, one on each side of the back cover. Now, to get to it easily, I'm going to remove this rear brake cable, which is attached to the pedal there, and the handbrake cable. I've already given this area a degrease and a pressure wash because there was a whole lot of oil leaking through here when I took it out recently and swapped over a few bits to get it going, or this old one going. It'll still act as a reasonable spare. It spins up and starts the bike, no problem at the moment. Okay, I've removed the rear brake cable and the handbrake cable which crossed over it to give clear access to the starter motor. This is the earth wire for the whole system, goes onto one terminal. The main positive from the starter solenoid goes to this terminal, not to be confused with that wire there. So I'm going to remove both these screws and withdraw the starter motor so I can get a better access to the positive terminal. There's the positive terminal. It's got that little rubber cap that comes over it. They're 10mm nuts. I've got that dragged out a bit there. Hopefully the top nut will move without the bottom one twisting. If the bottom one twists, I need 2 spanners. So that's where the starter motor sits. It bolts to here and here. You can see the small drive gear in the end of the case there's a little bit of an oil run there. There was a lot more oil in this area when I swapped it over last time, but I degreased and pressure washed in and around this motor before I took this out this time. So this is just baked on dirt in that area. It's relatively clean in reality. I think I can just push the new starter in there. Yeah, you can feel a small tooth gear which is on the same shaft as the larger one. You can see there's two teeth of the larger gear shown there in the bottom of the hole. So there it's on the same shaft as the larger cog. It engages with the starter clutch cog that's on the crankshaft. I can feel I can roll that forward at the moment, but you can't roll it backwards. That's the sprag clutch doing its job. So for somebody who's got a starter clutch problem, by taking the starter motor out and just fiddling with that drive gear there and the small sprocket, you'll feel whether your starter clutch is disengaging correctly in the right direction. I can roll that small cog forward, but I can't roll it backwards, which is how it should work. I dabbed a bit of oil on that O-ring, fitted the starter in without the wiring on it at this stage, just to see that it engaged properly. The O-ring's a bit larger than the worn one on the other motor, so it took a bit of pushing in, but once it was flush with the casting on the back there, I knew it was home. So I pulled it out again. I'm going to connect the positive wire while it's sitting out, because it's a little bit easier. I've got the positive wire hanging down there at the moment. It goes in between the carburetor and the frame there. The negative wire's in there too somewhere. Yeah, this is going to fit. The actual shaft on this new starter is quite stiff. I can feel it clocking between its poles, whereas the original one is a lot looser. So the new brushes and everything are wearing in. The old one turns, the new one is quite stiff. I can feel it clocking. Maybe different poles, maybe different armature segments, I'm not sure, but I'm not going to try and pull it apart and frig around with it. I'm going to just fit it and see how it goes. So that's the new Chinese starter fitted, earth wire connected here, positive wire there. Those two screws pull the starter motor in. Needed a little bit of a push to get past the O-ring, because the O-ring's fresh and fills the gap. Will save a lot of oil pissing out. I think that's ready to trial now. Okay, I've got the ignition on, kill switch on, start. No problems there. I used the kill switch to shut it off, turn the kill switch on again. That appears to be all good. So I'm going to just put these rear brake cable, handbrake cable back on. There's a cotter pin goes through the pin in the end of this, which was the hardest thing about getting that out. This is actually a repair I made to this shaft because it had sheared off the thread sticking out the end of this piece. But I made that sleeve up with a bolt in it. Bit of pissing around, but it fixed the handbrake cable. I'll put that back together and we'll be done. Remains to be seen how this new starter from China is going to work out, but I'll find out. Get out to your shed and have some fun.